Arden Kale's ship shuddered violently as a swarm of rogue drones tore through the asteroid belt. Sparks flew across the cockpit and warning alarms screamed. One drone, jagged and metallic, swerved toward him, its claws snapping like steel jaws. Arden's fingers tightened on the controls. He twisted sharply, dodging the strike by inches. His heart pounded so fast he could feel it in his throat. There was no time to think, only to act. Ahead, through the swirling field of rock and debris, a massive shadow loomed. At first it looked like a drifting asteroid, but as he drew closer the shape took form. A hangar carved into the heart of a giant rock, its entrance dark and jagged. Arden's eyes widened. No one had claimed this place for decades. Most pilots avoided it, claiming it was cursed, abandoned, or dangerous. But Arden felt something in his chest pull him forward. Something alive. He banked his ship sharply, skimming the jagged edges of the hangar. The drones followed relentlessly, firing pulses that sparked against the hull. Arden's mind raced. He needed to land, to hide, to survive, and maybe, just maybe, find out why his instincts screamed that this place mattered. With a sudden burst, he flung the ship into the hangar's shadowed mouth, engine roaring as he skidded across the dust-covered floor. Inside, the air was thick with silence, metallic and cold. His lights cut through the darkness, revealing twisted beams, broken machinery, and the unmistakable bones of something massive. Arden froze, his breath catching. The skeleton lay sprawled across the floor, half metallic, half organic, like no creature he had ever seen. Its wings were enormous, shredded, but still hinting at a fierce grace. A long, curved tail coiled like a sleeping serpent. Arden's pulse quickened. This was no ordinary dragon. Something about it was alien, strange, but unmistakably intelligent. A low hum echoed suddenly from deeper inside the hangar. Arden spun toward it, heart leaping. The floor vibrated slightly, and a faint glow began to pulse from the creature's chest cavity. He crouched, unsure if he should run or investigate. Curiosity overcame fear. Carefully he stepped closer, touching the edge of one scale. It shivered under his hand, sending a small spark of light across the hangar. Arden gasped. Alive, or something left behind that mimicked life? "Why are you here?" he whispered, almost to himself. The echo returned, hollow but strange, like the hangar itself was listening. He crouched beside the skeleton, inspecting the glowing core embedded in its chest. A small panel slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a chamber. Arden's eyes widened further. Inside, a small, smooth object glimmered faintly, a scale perfectly preserved. He reached out and lifted it. The moment he touched it, the glow intensified, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. Arden stumbled back, startled, but the scale stayed warm in his palm. Something inside this hangar recognized him. Before he could ponder more, the floor trembled violently. Dust cascaded from the ceiling. A massive shadow moved at the far end of the hangar. Arden's mind raced. Another drone? Or something far older, far stranger? He raised his flashlight and the beam caught movement. Something coiled in the shadows, massive yet alive. A hiss, low and resonant, vibrated through the floor. Arden swallowed hard. Whatever it was, it had been waiting. The doors of the hangar shuddered. Outside, the swarm of rogue drones had tracked him here, pounding against the rock with relentless force. Sparks flew through cracks. Arden's instinct screamed, act now or the hangar, and whatever secrets it held, would be destroyed. He glanced at the scale in his hand. It pulsed brighter, almost urging him. A plan formed in his mind, quick and risky, but his survival depended on it. He darted toward the glowing chamber, ducking under fallen beams. The shadow followed, slithering across the floor, its movements both elegant and terrifying. Arden pressed the scale against the chamber wall, and the glow expanded rapidly, illuminating a hidden doorway. The shadow halted, retreating slightly as if respecting the signal. Arden didn't hesitate. He ducked inside, barely squeezing through as the main hangar door groaned under the drone assault. Inside the hidden room the air was warmer. Strange markings glimmered faintly along the walls, ancient symbols, etched into metal and bone, telling a story Arden couldn't yet read. He caught his breath, clutching the scale tightly. The room hummed softly, alive in a way that made his skin tingle. For the first time in weeks of running, fighting, and hiding, Arden felt something like hope. And then, without warning, a loud crash shook the room. The hidden door rattled violently, as if something enormous was trying to break in. Arden's stomach dropped. He raised his hand, gripping the scale tightly. Its light pulsed faster, almost like a heartbeat matching his fear. The hangar had secrets. Dangerous secrets. And whatever had been waiting for him wasn't finished yet. Outside, the drone swarm's alarms blared in the distance, closer now, relentless. Arden's eyes met the shadows in the chamber, and a shiver ran down his spine. He didn't know what he had found, but he knew one thing clearly: leaving now wasn't an option. The hangar had claimed him, and whatever alive or not had been waiting for him was watching. Arden took a deep breath, steadied his hands and whispered, "Let's see what you're hiding." A pulse of light shot from the scale, and the hidden chamber began to hum louder, echoing through the hangar. Arden's heart leaped. Something was about to awaken. Arden's pulse raced as the hum from the hidden chamber filled the hangar. The light from the dragon's scale bounced off the walls, casting long, twisted shadows. Outside, he could hear the unmistakable whine of drones, smaller, faster, and now accompanied by larger corporate interceptors. They were organized, relentless, and clearly expecting him to be alone. Arden tightened his grip on the glowing scale and scanned the room. He had seconds to decide. He ran his hand along the walls, feeling for anything that could serve as a defensive advantage. Metal beams, jagged machinery, fallen drone parts, anything. His eyes landed on a cluster of inactive maintenance drones suspended from the ceiling. An idea struck. Arden's hands moved quickly, rewiring the drone's power circuits to respond to the scale's pulse. If he timed it right, the hangar itself could fight for him. It was risky, untested, but he had no choice. Outside, a massive crash echoed as a corporate interceptor smashed through part of the hangar's outer wall. Dust and debris swirled around Arden's head. He ducked, barely avoiding a falling beam, and recalibrated the reprogrammed drones. A small hum began as circuits clicked into place. The scale pulsed faster, feeding energy into the suspended drones. Sparks flickered, and the hangar seemed to respond, vibrating subtly beneath Arden's feet. Then from the shadows, a low, rolling hiss echoed. Arden froze. The shape that had been watching him, the semi-alive, serpentine shadow, slithered closer. Its edges glimmered faintly, reflecting the light from the scale. Arden's breath caught. It wasn't attacking, just observing, testing. His gut told him this presence was tied to the hangar and the dragon remains. It was a guardian of something ancient, something he didn't yet understand. The first wave of drones breached the inner corridor, their weapons firing bursts of energy that scorched the walls. Arden didn't hesitate. He threw a makeshift EMP device, cobbling old wiring and alien circuitry from the hangar, into the path of the drones. Sparks flew, circuits fried, and the first drones dropped like fallen insects. Arden felt a small surge of hope. It worked. But it was only the beginning. A second wave hit harder. Larger drones, built for destruction, smashed through the far wall. Arden ducked again, narrowly avoiding a searing plasma blast. He needed more than luck. He needed strategy. Using the scale as a beacon, he led the enemy drones through a narrow corridor lined with the hangar's jagged debris. The drones, bigger and less agile, collided with walls, knocking themselves out of alignment. Arden's quick thinking allowed him to buy precious seconds, but the attackers adapted fast. A sudden movement behind him made Arden spin. The semi-alive shadow had moved into the corridor, its long form curling elegantly but with terrifying speed. One of the larger drones struck it midair. The shadow hissed sharply, a sound that rattled Arden's bones, but it wasn't harmed. Arden realized it had the ability to manipulate the hangar itself, to redirect attacks. It seemed to recognize him, as if judging his courage and intelligence. Arden swallowed hard. He could not afford to frighten it. Then came the biggest surprise yet. As he navigated deeper, a portion of the hangar floor shifted, revealing hidden cryo-cocoons. Within them, small dragon eggs, biologically preserved and glowing faintly, drifted in stasis. Arden's eyes widened. This wasn't just a hangar. It was a sanctuary, a legacy of the dragons. His stomach tightened. Protecting this place wasn't just survival, it was responsibility. He gently touched one egg. It shivered, responding to his warmth. Another small payoff. The legacy was real and he could feel it calling to him. Suddenly, a corporate interceptor rammed the outer wall near the cocoons. Metal groaned and one pod cracked. Arden lunged, catching it before the hatch broke open. His hands trembled. One wrong move and the creatures inside could be destroyed. He whispered, "Not today. I won't let them die." His compassion burned like fire in his chest, giving him focus. The reprogrammed maintenance drones sprang to life, zipping through the corridors with precision. Sparks of energy arced from their circuits, striking incoming corporate drones with calculated force. Arden watched, wide-eyed, as the hangar itself seemed to come alive, assisting him in ways he had not anticipated. The semi-alive shadow coiled around a fallen support beam, guiding the drones toward danger and clearing paths for him. Arden realized the hangar wasn't just a shelter, it was a partner. A sudden alarm blared from a corporate control panel outside the inner chamber. Arden glimpsed through a fractured window and saw a massive transport ship landing, deploying elite scavengers armed with high-tech weaponry. Their leader, a tall figure in black armor, scanned the hangar's entrance and smirked. "Thought you could hide in that heap, human?" he shouted. "This hangar belongs to us." Arden's jaw tightened. He had seconds to act. He scanned the room. The cocoons were vulnerable. The semi-alive shadow was waiting, the scale pulsing urgently in his hand. Arden made a decisive move. He sprinted toward the inner chamber with the scale, guiding the semi-alive presence and reprogrammed drones to cover the approach. Sparks flew, drones collided with attackers, and the hangar shuddered as if breathing. Arden ducked under a falling beam, snatched the nearest cocoon, and moved it to a safer section behind him. The elite scavengers approached, weapons ready, their confidence unshaken. Arden's stomach twisted, but he stood his ground, holding the glowing scale aloft. Its light flared, sending a shockwave through the room. The shadow hissed, curling around the intruders' legs, toppling them with a force they couldn't understand. Arden's eyes met the leader's, and in that moment he realized something critical. Courage, intelligence, and a connection to this place could turn the impossible odds in his favor. And then, from the deepest corner of the hangar, a rumble echoed. The walls vibrated violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. Arden froze. The semi-alive presence hissed sharply, the scale pulsed brighter, and a new, deeper glow began spreading along the floor. Something ancient and powerful was awakening. Arden swallowed, heart pounding. The hangar had more secrets. And whatever stirred now, it was far bigger than any drone, far stranger than any scavenger. Arden's breath came in sharp bursts as the hangar trembled beneath him. Sparks from the damaged drones scattered across the floor, and the faint glow from the scale illuminated the semi-alive shadow coiling near the walls. Outside, the elite scavengers regrouped, shouting orders through comms, their confidence unshaken. Arden's mind raced. The hangar wasn't just defending itself, it was alive, aware, and somehow tied to him. But he still didn't understand how. The dragon egg in his hands pulsed softly, almost in rhythm with his heartbeat. Arden crouched behind a fallen support beam, eyes darting for a way to protect the rest of the cocoons. The semi-alive shadow hissed low, drawing attention to a section of the hangar that vibrated faintly. Arden's gut twisted. That vibration was no accident, it felt like a warning. He stepped closer, the scale lighting the path, and noticed a fissure in the floor, previously hidden under rubble. Through it, faint movement shimmered. The movement was subtle at first, a soft quiver of light, but then the egg in his hands reacted violently. Arden stumbled back, clutching it as a sudden crack ran along the shell. The semi-alive shadow recoiled slightly, as if anticipating what was happening. Arden's heart pounded. This wasn't supposed to happen yet. The dragon's legacy, dormant for decades, was awakening. The shell split open with a sharp snap. Arden froze, staring as a tiny, brilliant creature emerged. Its scales shimmered with colors that seemed alive, reflecting the glow from the scale in his hand. Its eyes, large and intelligent, locked onto Arden. For a moment, the hangar fell silent. The drone swarm paused mid-flight, the scavengers froze, and the semi-alive shadow tilted its head, observing. Arden's pulse hammered in his ears. The hatchling wasn't just alive, it recognized him. Without thinking, Arden reached out. The hatchling tilted its head and pressed a small snout against his hand. A warm surge of energy shot through him. Sparks flickered from the scale in his palm, connecting to the hatchling. The semi-alive shadow stirred, curling protectively around the chamber. Arden's mind raced. This was no ordinary dragon. It was biologically linked to the hangar, to the scale, and now, somehow, to him. A sudden crash shattered the moment. The elite scavengers had breached the inner chamber, their weapons raised. Arden's stomach dropped. He couldn't lose the hatchling, or the rest of the eggs. Acting fast, he threw the glowing scale onto the floor. It pulsed wildly, sending arcs of energy into the hangar's circuits. Sparks flew, and the reprogrammed maintenance drones activated fully. They zipped toward the intruders, striking with precision. Arden grabbed the hatchling and sprinted toward a hidden alcove, ducking under beams and shards of metal. The hatchling hissed softly, a sound almost musical. Arden realized it was communicating, guiding him through the shadows. He followed, heart racing, trusting instinct and the creature's signals. The semi-alive shadow moved alongside him, blocking paths, diverting attacks and manipulating the hangar's machinery. Arden's mind worked quickly. Every move he made had consequences, and every choice could save or doom the hatchlings. He set one cocoon behind a reinforced wall, securing it, then returned for another. A pulse of energy from the scale caused the floor to vibrate violently. Arden stumbled, nearly dropping the hatchling. He looked up and saw the hangar responding as if alive, panels sliding into place, barriers forming from fallen beams, and vents releasing bursts of light that disoriented the scavengers. Arden's heart leapt. The hangar was protecting him. The hatchling, the scale, and the semi-alive shadow were all part of the same system. Arden realized the hangar wasn't just a shelter, it was a guardian, a legacy left by the dragons themselves. But then came the unexpected. From a shadowed corner, one of the largest scavenger drones lunged toward Arden. Its claws glinted in the dim light. Arden acted instinctively, slamming the hatchling into a small alcove while spinning to kick the drone back. Sparks flew and the drone crashed against the wall. Arden's heart pounded. He had survived, but he knew the scavengers would not give up. The hatchling shifted, glowing brighter. Arden felt a strange warmth radiating from it, connecting him to the hangar. He held out his hand and the scale pulsed stronger than ever. The semi-alive shadow hissed in unison, curling around the intruders. The drones froze mid-step as if stunned. Arden realized something incredible. The hatchling could influence the hangar and the technology within it. With the right guidance he could turn the tide completely. Suddenly, a deep rumble echoed through the chamber. The walls vibrated violently. The hidden symbols on the walls, the markings he had barely noticed before, began to glow, casting an eerie light. Arden's eyes widened. The hangar was awakening fully. The scavengers looked around in confusion, unsure what was happening. Arden's chest tightened with excitement and fear. The legacy of the dragons was far greater than he had imagined. He took a deep breath, holding the hatchling close. Its eyes met his, intelligent and aware. Arden whispered, "We're not just surviving. We're going to protect them, all of them." A pulse of light shot from the scale, spreading through the hangar. The semi-alive shadow hissed sharply, a sound that shook the floor. Arden's stomach dropped. Something bigger, something powerful, was stirring beneath the hangar. Outside, the elite scavenger leader shouted orders, panic creeping into his voice. Inside, Arden felt a surge of determination. The hangar, the hatchling, the shadow, and the glowing scale, they were all part of a force far beyond human technology. Arden realized, with a spark of fear and hope, that he was the first human in centuries to awaken it. And whatever came next would change everything. A deep, resonant roar echoed from the far end of the hangar, shaking dust from the ceiling. Arden froze, heart hammering. The hatchling arched its back, scales glowing intensely, and the semi-alive shadow hissed in alarm. Arden knew one thing for certain. The awakening had only just begun. Arden's hands were trembling, but his mind was razor-sharp. The hangar vibrated beneath him as the hatchling's glow intensified, casting long shadows across jagged metal and broken beams. Outside, the elite scavengers had regrouped, their larger drones forming a tight perimeter. Their weapons bristled, their confidence returning, but Arden was no longer alone. The hangar, the semi-alive shadow, the glowing scale, and the hatchling were aligned with him. Together, they were a force far beyond anything the scavengers had expected. He tightened his grip on the hatchling, its scales warm against his palms. Sparks flickered from the glowing scale in his hand, feeding energy into the reprogrammed maintenance drones. Arden took a deep breath, forcing his fear into focus. Every move he made now had to be perfect. A wrong step could destroy the hatchlings and ruin the hangar. He whispered, "We fight smart. We fight together." The scavenger leader barked orders, sending the first wave of drones charging into the inner chamber. Arden ducked under a falling beam, slamming the hatchling gently into the alcove for safety. The semi-alive shadow uncoiled, lashing out with terrifying speed. Its movements were precise, blocking drones, tripping them into walls, and forcing them into the path of the energy pulses from Arden's scale. Sparks flew, circuits fried, and one by one the attacking drones fell. Arden felt a surge of hope, but the larger threat loomed. A massive corporate interceptor breached the outer wall, landing heavily and spewing armored scavengers into the hangar. Arden froze for a heartbeat, then acted. He sprinted along a catwalk above the battle floor, using the scale to pulse energy toward the maintenance drones. They surged forward like lightning, striking the intruders' machinery and tossing them aside. Sparks and smoke filled the air. The scavengers shouted, confusion creeping into their precise formation. Arden ducked under a swinging support beam, landing behind the largest transport crate he could find. The hatchling chirped, almost urgently, glowing brighter. Arden realized it was guiding him toward the core of the hangar. He dashed forward, weaving through the chaos, and reached the dragon skeleton. Its half-organic, half-mechanical frame shimmered faintly in response to the hatchling's energy. Arden touched the glowing core embedded in its chest. A pulse shot through the hangar, sending shockwaves that knocked drones off their feet. Sparks cascaded across the floor. Arden's heart raced. The hangar was responding directly to his actions. One of the elite scavengers fired a plasma cannon. Arden barely rolled out of the way, watching as the beam seared the wall just behind him. The hatchling arched its back and released a pulse that collided with the cannon blast. Both energy streams tangled in midair, exploding in a shower of sparks. Arden gasped, realizing that the hatchling could fight alongside him. He gritted his teeth and pressed forward, guiding the semi-alive shadow and drones to form a moving shield around him. The scavenger leader, clad in black armor, shouted, "Stop them! Kill the human!" Arden's jaw tightened. He had never faced an opponent so confident, so ruthless, but he had the advantage of creativity, courage, and allies the enemy could not comprehend. He pressed the scale harder against the dragon skeleton. Light spread along the hangar's walls, forming barriers and closing corridors. The scavengers were trapped in a maze of shifting metal, while the semi-alive shadow blocked escape routes with precision. A cry came from one of the rear corridors. Arden spun, his heart dropping. A cocoon had cracked open prematurely, and a small hatchling was struggling to emerge. Without hesitation, Arden sprinted, pushing debris aside and shielding it with his body. Sparks flew from a damaged drone, narrowly missing him. He cradled the tiny creature as it fully emerged, its scales soft and glowing. Another small payoff, life preserved, courage rewarded. He smiled briefly, even as the hangar shook violently from outside attacks. The scavenger leader realized Arden's advantage and activated a massive energy disruptor, sending a pulse across the hangar. The walls vibrated violently. Arden stumbled, clutching the scale and hatchling. The semi-alive shadow hissed sharply, curling protectively around him. The hangar shuddered, but Arden stood firm. He realized he could merge the scale's energy with the hatchling's pulse. It was risky, one miscalculation could destroy everything, but it was the only chance. Arden placed the hatchling against the dragon skeleton's core. Light flared, blinding and intense. The semi-alive shadow coiled tightly around him as the hangar itself seemed to respond, machinery whirring and panels sliding into position. Sparks and energy arcs danced across the floor. The enemy drones were thrown back, disoriented, their circuits frying as the hangar's defenses activated fully. The scavenger leader screamed, rushing forward in disbelief, but Arden's clever coordination, human ingenuity, and courage had turned the impossible odds in his favor. Through the chaos, Arden's chest heaved. He glanced at the hatchling, its eyes locking with his. The glow had spread across the hangar, illuminating every alcove, every cocoon, every hidden chamber. Arden felt a surge of pride and awe. He had not only survived, but he had protected the dragon legacy. The hangar, the semi-alive presence, and the creatures within recognized him as a guardian. Then, without warning, the floor beneath the scavenger leader cracked violently. A hidden trapdoor opened, sending him tumbling into a lower chamber filled with dormant machinery and shadows. Arden's pulse quickened. The hangar was not done revealing its secrets. He knew that this was only the beginning, that the larger forces that had created this place were still out there. Arden took a deep breath, holding the hatchling close. Sparks rained from the ceiling, and the hangar hummed with energy, alive in a way that no machine, no human, and no drone could fully understand. He had faced impossible odds, outnumbered and outgunned, yet his courage, intelligence, and empathy had won the day. The scavengers were defeated, the hangar preserved, and the dragon legacy protected, at least for now. But a deep, resonant hum rose from the far end of the hangar. The walls vibrated with a strange energy, pulsing in rhythm with the hatchling's glow. Arden's stomach twisted. He glanced at the semi-alive shadow, which hissed, alert and tense. Something even bigger, something more ancient than the scavengers or drones, was stirring. Arden knew instinctively that the real challenge had not yet come. He tightened his grip on the hatchling, whispering, "We've made it this far. We'll face what comes next together." The hangar shivered as if acknowledging his words. Sparks danced across the walls, the scale pulsed brighter than ever, and a shadow moved in the deepest corner. A form larger than any dragon, coiled and waiting. Arden's pulse raced. The next threat was awakening. Arden stood in the center of the hangar, chest heaving, ears ringing with the echoes of battle. Sparks sizzled across the floor, smoke curling from broken drones and scorched metal. The scale in his hand pulsed softly now, synchronized with the heartbeat of the hatchling nestled against his chest. The semi-alive shadow curled protectively at his feet, eyes glowing faintly, scanning for any lingering threats. For the first time in hours, Arden allowed himself a slow breath. He had survived. He had won. Around him the hangar had shifted. Walls once twisted and broken had straightened subtly, panels closing gaps as if breathing life. The hatchlings, small and fragile moments ago, now moved cautiously from their cocoons. Their scales glimmered with faint alien light. Arden knelt beside one, letting it climb onto his shoulder. He felt its tiny claws press lightly against his armor, a gentle, trusting connection. The realization hit him hard. He had not only saved these creatures, he had become their protector, their link to the world outside. The semi-alive shadow moved closer to the central chamber, coiling around the dragon's skeleton. It hissed softly, a sound almost like a purr. The glow from the scale intensified, casting intricate patterns across the walls. Arden's eyes followed the patterns, realizing they were more than decoration. They were instructions, a map of the hangar's hidden systems, revealing how to sustain and defend it. Every action he had taken, the energy pulses guiding the hatchlings, activating the drones, had been acknowledged by the hangar. It responded to courage, intelligence, and care. Arden swallowed, awe and relief mixing in his chest. From the far end of the hangar, the sound of shifting metal drew his attention. A massive shape moved in the shadows, larger than any dragon he had seen, yet graceful and deliberate. Arden froze, heart hammering, unsure if it was friend or foe. The shape stepped into the dim light, revealing a towering guardian dragon, its scales reflecting every hue of the hatchlings below. Its eyes, deep and intelligent, locked onto Arden. Arden felt the weight of millennia in that gaze, a test, an acknowledgement. He straightened, standing tall, and whispered, "I'm here to protect them. To protect this place." The guardian dragon lowered its massive head slightly, letting out a low, resonant hum. Arden felt the vibrations through his chest. The semi-alive shadow shifted closer, curling protectively around the hatchlings and Arden himself. The hangar vibrated softly as if affirming his claim. Arden realized fully and finally that the hangar, once a haunted, abandoned relic, had become a sanctuary. It was alive and it had chosen him. Outside, the scorched remains of the scavengers' drones and transport ships smoldered. Arden peeked through a fractured panel at the asteroid belt beyond. The battle was over, for now, but the galaxy beyond remained unpredictable and dangerous. He knew that claiming the hangar had painted a target on his back, but he also understood the stakes. These creatures in this place were too important to leave unprotected. Courage alone had brought him this far, but foresight, empathy, and intelligence would keep him safe. Arden knelt again, touching the largest hatchling. Its small eyes blinked up at him, and he smiled, feeling the first true sense of connection he had experienced in months of isolation. "You're safe now," he whispered. The hatchlings chirped softly in response, the sound echoing across the hangar like a chorus of hope. Every micro-cliffhanger from earlier, the rogue drones, the scavengers, the awakening of the hangar, had led to this moment. Arden had proven that humans, through courage, intelligence, and compassion, could turn impossible odds into triumph. A sudden hum drew Arden's gaze to the ceiling. Panels shifted, revealing new corridors and hidden chambers. The scale pulsed once, twice, and then dimmed, letting him know the hangar had revealed only part of its secrets. Arden's chest tightened with anticipation. He understood now that the hangar's full potential was far greater than he had imagined. The sanctuary was secure for the hatchlings, but the galaxy beyond was still watching, still waiting for the next move. The semi-alive shadow hissed one last time, curling around Arden's feet before retreating to the shadows. The guardian dragon stepped closer, nudging Arden gently with its massive head. Arden placed his hand on its scaled snout, feeling the immense power and intelligence contained within. He realized then that he wasn't just a survivor, he was a link between human ingenuity and a species the galaxy had long forgotten. Humans could shine in the darkest corners, even among dragons and ancient hangars. As Arden guided the hatchlings to safety, he felt a strange thrill. The sanctuary was alive, the dragons trusted him, and the scavengers had been defeated. But the universe had a way of testing courage, always pushing boundaries. His mind turned to the larger mysteries hinted at in the hangar, the hidden chambers, the markings on the walls, the pulsing energy that had saved him at critical moments. Arden understood that this was only the beginning. He stood at the center of the hangar, gaze sweeping across the glowing hatchlings and the semi-alive shadow, heart steady, determination burning brighter than ever. The hangar had become something no one could imagine, a sanctuary, alive and bound to human courage. Arden smiled, feeling the weight of responsibility and the exhilaration of triumph. Then, from the deepest chamber, a low vibration echoed, a deep, resonant pulse that hadn't come from any dragon or machine. Arden's eyes narrowed. Something even larger, older, and more mysterious than he had faced stirred beneath the hangar. His pulse quickened. The hangar was secure, but the secrets of the past were not yet fully revealed. Arden's jaw tightened and a slow grin spread across his face. "Whatever you are," he whispered, voice steady, "we'll face you. Together."